my goodness! Holy sh!
Well, folks, I'm back at it. I got about a week before the trip, and I've got plenty to do. Today I'm going to try, keyword there being try, to get my brake booster on. That's the old one, of course. As I mentioned before, I'm going to be adapting a 2002 F150 brake booster to this. I have to bleed all the brakes, and who knows what kind of troubles I'm going to find. I know the rear brakes at the back have got to be totally rotten for all the rust that's in this. I'm also going to try to get a throttle cable done today. And what else was I going to try to do? Oh, maybe an air cleaner. So let's get busy. Bam! Let's see here. Where does that fit? Nope, other way. You should know better than that. There you go. Good old CA351 air filter. Alright, went down to the parts stash shed. Found another cable of unknown origin. Used to have a whole bunch of these. Every time I'd scrap out a 70s or 80s Ford vehicle, I'd pull all these throttle cables off. My supply is dwindling now. That's right, I said dwindling. There's your fancy pants word of the day. Dwindling. So comparing the ends here, this one is pretty close. There is a length difference. I might be able to make that up by tying a knot in the cable or putting a spacer in there of some sort, or just spacing this flange out like that with some threaded rod and nuts, which is probably the route I'll take. What's a bigger problem is the fact this one has a curve in it. I've test fitted already, and it kind of, the cable rubs real hard on it. I'm going to have to try to carefully cut that curved sleeve off of there without damaging the cable underneath. The bigger problem is this end. See what I guess it's not insurmountable, but apparently this was off of a fuel-injected vehicle. It's got a bracket that I've never really worked with before. I went back out to the shed to dig around a little, see if I could find see if I had any more cables out there that I missed that had this type of end, because I need this bracket to mount it. And in my digging I found this throttle body bracket, so I guess I'm in pretty good shape there. I'll be cutting this section out here to use that mounting area there. Okay, so what I did was I carefully went around with a hacksaw and I cut in just part way. I didn't try to go all the way down to the cable. I just wanted to weaken it. And then I took a pair of pliers and gently pried on it, and it snapped in like 4 different planes, and I got it to snap away. This outer sleeve is loose. I can't really show you because I don't have no hands. It's loose, but now there's this, the cable sheath here runs all the way through it, so I'm going to have to figure out a way to get that thing sliced and get it off of there now. Probably, yeah, I can't think of any other way to do that other than nibble away at it with the hacksaw. Hey, what you got there or not, Steve? Did you catch your mouse? Good job. Let's see what you got here. Well, I'm not going to take it from you. Good job, buddy. That's what we keep you around for. Alright, I finally got the outer sleeve broke away. What I did was, I nibbled away at it with a hacksaw and then just went at it with a pair of pliers, and little by little got it all broke away. Luckily the inner sleeve, once I got the outer one out, didn't have a curve in it. The length difference here, I don't know if it's going to pick it up. What I'm going to do is, instead of using the threaded screws, or like the sheet metal screws that held it on, I'm going to drill the holes out in the bracket over there and run these bolts, and it looks to me like the thickness of a 3/8 nut should be just about right to get it in the same. Yeah, it's not showing it at the angle that I'm able to hold the camera at, but trust me, a 3/8 nut ought to work out pretty good, and then I'll work on the other side. Alright, there's the cobbled up solution for that end. I'm gonna get busy on the other side here. It's gonna entail, where'd it go? Yeah, cutting cutting this bracket up somehow and getting it mounted in there. I might be able to use these two heat riser bolt holes to make my bracket and mount it. Alright, so here's what you get for your admission price here. It was going to be a huge pain in the butt to try to fabricate a bracket to bolt into those, and I'd already ground so much off the bottom of those embossments that it really wasn't a good idea. My only other option was to try to utilize the valve cover bolts or the intake exhaust bolts, and yeah, I didn't want to put that much time into it. This just as easy. I did this on my 66 Bronco as well when I converted it to a 2-barrel. It'll be fine. I know it looks hack, and it is, but it'll work. And yeah, the throttle return spring, there's no good place to hook it to. So I just strung a wire over there to the voltage regulator, and I think it'll be just fine. Okay, so working on the brake booster conversion. Ow. Smashed my finger there. The bolt pattern was a tighter pattern. I just used my die grinder and ovaled out these holes. Let's see, get it on there with one hand, not possible. Well, I know it fits, I just have it on there. There we go, drop the phone. All right. Again, it looks kind of hacked, but really once the nuts are on there, it can't go anywhere. In order for that thing to shift, the whole bracket would have to shift. And yeah, all 4 of those can't do that because they're all butted in there. I think I got just enough time today to bolt the bracket back on, so I'm going to have to shorten the push rod. And initially, it looks like, let's see if I can get that focused. Looks like that is going to hit that sleeve there. And I almost gave up on the idea until I realized, and then I thought, well, maybe I can cut the sleeve off. And then I got to mess around with it, and I realized the whole sleeve actually pushes into the brake booster when your brakes are applied. But yeah, I'm going to have to get this bracket bolted onto the firewall and get the pedal hooked up under the dash to know how far this is going to need to be cut. I guess there's still a possibility it may not work because of, that length might end up being too short into there where it's getting into that, but I'll find out soon enough. I'm back at it again today. It's Friday afternoon and we are leaving next Saturday morning. Got my push rod on my brake booster shortened down. I'm glad I did a test fit before I welded this because it told me the rod was at way too much of an angle to the bracket. Probably has something to do with how this booster doesn't sit flat or something. So yeah, instead of butt welding it right to the end of the rod there, I staggered it down a little bit. Okay, so for those of you that have never had the pleasure of working on one of these 70s Ford's brake booster mounts, it's been my experience that they always this pin, it goes right in there, is always seized up in the booster rod, and you always have to destroy it. So yeah, I made a new one out of a 3/8 bolt. Yeah, there's not much room in there to work, and then to make it worse, you got your hood hinge here in the way, and you're trying to, is not a good angle to go at this. So I think I got everything ready. I'm going to try to get it wrestled in there. Well, I got it in there. I'm not sure how, but it's there. Now all I got to do is lift the booster in place and bolt it in. It's finally all in there. I did go ahead and adjust the push rod to the master cylinder, and I guess it's time to bleed the master cylinder now. Alright, it seems like master cylinders, I haven't seen one in years that's came with the fittings to bleed them this way, and the manufacturers and rebuilders all send those plugs you put in there and tell you to do the little short strokes on it. Yeah, never mind that crap. Make yourself a set of these. It saves you a lot of time, and sometimes, especially with these newer aluminum master cylinders, those can be, I've run into ones that were just almost impossible to get bled, and this did the trick to get it done. And sometimes once I get it where I'm not getting any more air coming out, then I'll go ahead and put the plugs in there. And if it's good and firm with hardly any movement, it's a pretty good sign you got it all. Come on, tighten up. There you go. Before I bother even hooking up the brake lines, I'm going to try to get these bleeders broke loose. I'm betting they're either going to snap off or I might actually put the torch to them to try to get them broke loose. First thing I'll try to do is shock that rust into breaking loose. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and go to the heat option. I figure, yeah, it just feels like it's going to twist off of there. Even if I put too much heat to it and it ruins the seal, I'm really not in any different position than, yeah, I think that's going to twist off. Now I could just stick the socket on there and try to break it loose, but if I'm going to go through the trouble of doing this, I'll usually let it go through, I'll heat it up once, let it cool down, heat it up, I'll let it, typically maybe at least 3 cycles before I try it. Here if I'm going to try it, I just as well go the distance with it. I guess while that's cooling I can just do the other side. Alright, both sides have been through 3 heating cooling cycles and I've smacked on the caliper around the bleeder after they cooled off. Let's I'm gonna try to turn that bleeder out. If it doesn't cooperate, I'm gonna heat it up one more time and try it while it's warmed up. Hey, it's moving. I didn't expect it to come out quite that easy. There it went. Looks like got something going on right here. All right, it's Saturday, so hopefully a week from now we will be well on our way down to the location to pick up the Comet, go to the swap meet, and got a couple of gun shows maybe might hit on the way down there too. Cold out in the shop this morning. While I'm waiting for the oil burner to get the shop warmed up, I think I'll take a little time to clean some of the debris out of this truck. Hey, you're not Steve. You can't do that. There's fuses in here. I'm wondering what the purpose of that was. There might be something to do with my electrical issues. We got something that's blowing fuses. So I better hold on to those. Napkins. Pile of napkins. yeah, I gotta use that. A chrome skull spinner knob. Woohoo! Mystery box. The mystery box could be anything. It could even be a boat. You know how much we've been wanting one of those. Oh, it's not a boat, it's bolts. There you go. Plywood floor. Yeah, that's the frame right there. I'll have to cut a piece of plywood or something just to drop in there to keep our stuff from falling out along the trip. Pretty clean, almost passed for brand new. Anyway, it's getting warmed up in here. I'm gonna get underneath there, start replacing some brake lines. I'm not gonna bore you with that though. Okay, I'm up here in the field in my parts vehicle stash. I need a rim for a spare tire, some 2.5-inch exhaust pipe, and a foot-mounted dimmer switch. A foot-operated dimmer switch. Alright, got some various pieces of 2.5 and 2. Got a whole long stretch there. A muffler, I gotta be able to come up with something. Biggest problem might be that I don't have any good long pieces, straight pieces of 2-inch. What I'm gonna do is run 2-inch out of each header collector and bring them together into a 2.5 and then run that into a muffler and on out maybe to the rear axle and turn it down or off to the side. So I might have to go to an exhaust shop and get some pieces of 2-inch straight. The wheels kind of, I don't know, there's plenty of wheels there, but none of them are really any better than the one I already scrounged up, so I think I'll just go ahead and use it. And surprisingly, I did manage to find a dimmer switch that actually worked. They were all either seized up or when you push down on them they stuck. I'm really shocked I found that. Alright, I'm going to wrap things up for today. I got the new line run up front and bled the front brakes. They bled just fine. I ran a line all the way from the proportioning valve to the rubber line here in the back. I don't have time to bleed those today, but I did get the bleeder out of the passenger side drum just fine. The driver's side put up a little bit of fight, but with a couple applications of heat and some generous tapping in a few areas, I did get it to come out. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but the headlights didn't work, and that was, as I was vacuuming it out, I realized there was no dimmer switch in there. And I already showed you I went and got a dimmer switch, and headlights work now. So, I did accomplish something today. Hopefully tomorrow I can get out here, finish up bleeding those rear brakes, and hopefully all the brakes are okay with putting all the heat to those front calipers. Hopefully I didn't cook the seals on them. If the brakes are all okay, that's going to be a huge, huge weight off my shoulders and I can move on to other things. Well, I'm back from town, got all my parts. I should be in the shop working, but I've come to the realization it's pretty cold today. The ground's frozen. It's supposed to get warmer all week. This is the trailer I'm going to take, so I figured today's the day to get it while the ground's frozen. So let's see if I have some sort of little disaster happen trying to get this off the trailer. almost done. Okay, it looks like I'm in the shop for the night. Got the waste oil burner going. Got my wheel cylinder, but I just don't feel like working on brakes right now. So I'm gonna maybe plug away at my exhaust a little bit. Another a PSA for you folks. Any of you that go to like farm and home type stores, you'll see this stuff called a sprayer hose. That does not work for gasoline hose. I found out. I thought, what the hell, I'd give it a try. It lasted a day before the gasoline was actually eating through it. I want to try to demonstrate what I'm dealing with underneath there. As you've seen, the two collectors come out kind of in a fairly tight spot. The one runs underneath the starter and runs pretty much straight out, and this rear header collector kind of comes out at an angle. So what I've done is right where where it comes out of the front header, it's 2 inches for maybe about, I don't know, 6 inches or so. Then it goes into it expands into 2.5. Right here where it starts into 2.5 is where I want to Y pipe in for the rear header. The problem is the collectors don't line up perfectly. That's why I need this curve in it so I can, rotate it to get it to line up. Now here's the real problem, because they are fairly close together. There's not much room to work. I will be up and down off of that creeper 2.68 million times trying to trim this pipe to fit the straight one and getting the hole cut in there perfectly. So I did come up with a different idea. It's not elegant, but it should work. What I'm going to do, this is the actual piece I'm going to use. I'm just going to slice it in half right here and just use the top half. And then I'll take that top half, if you can picture it, and it'll be a lot easier to fit it to the bottom pipe. And then once I have the fitting done, I will be able to mark out what all I need to take out of this, and I will, instead of trying to get in there and weld that tight little corner, I'll be able to basically box it in. I don't know if I'm explaining it very well. I'm just going to shut up and do it and then show you the finished result. I've wasted 2 minutes running my mouth. Okay, I've been at this a couple hours now, so this is kind of what I'm talking about, if you get the idea. The other half of this pipe is gone. All I had to do, let me get back here a little bit, all I had to do was shape this outer half. And yeah, then box this in. Obviously, it is cut open in there. I'm going to go ahead and cut out a piece to fill this gap, tack it in there, and then I'm going to get it all burned down. Hopefully it doesn't warp up enough that I can't get it back together. But, yeah, like I said, it's not elegant, but I still think it's a lot better option than trying to fit that one short little piece of pipe in that tiny little amount of space, and then trying to weld clear down here in this corner would have been almost impossible. Alright, there it is. Let's not dwell on how horrible it looks. Let's just be happy it's done and hope it's not warped. I tell you, I've been working on exhaust so long that I'm ready to get back to doing brake work. I don't know if I'm going to run that glass pack. I'm going to try it. If it sounds awful, then I'll be cutting that off and putting something quieter on. Something, yeah, who knows. That, at least the hard part here is done, provided it's not warped all to hell. Alright, finished results. There's the Y pipe. Come back here to the glass pack. I welded, yeah, it's not showing, there's a remnants of an old hanger there. I just welded it right to the pipe. Come through the back. There's the Another remnant of a hanger. Yeah, I know, that's pretty sketchy, but I figure it's better than nothing. Did it, and then it goes into a 90. I know the 90 doesn't go all the way out, but at least it'll help get some of the noise and fumes pushed out. I wanted to at least get the pipe long enough to get it past the cab, so hopefully we wouldn't be getting exhaust fumes up through the rust holes in the cab. Let's see how it sounds. Damn, she just pops right off. Man, this thing purrs. Not bad. I'm pretty happy with it. Nice, kind of a mellow sound. Well, I never did get to show you guys my air cleaner lid. It's an old metal plate. Found it in the cab of one of my parts trucks. You're a stubborn one, huh? Kind of scared me. I was just getting ready to look see if it popped already and I didn't realize it. Hold down that dimmer switch. Oh yeah! So I got it all apart, no problem. All the springs are intact and everything, and I noticed these brake shoes, missing chunks out of them. They're so old. Then I realized I had a new set of brake shoes in a box out in the shed that I got in an auction. So I went out and checked them, and by God, they look like the right ones. The other problem I've had is the adjuster so far on the passenger side was seized up. Couple seconds of love with the torch, it took care of that. Everything's back together. Got new brake shoes on both sides, got them bled. Now I'm going to stand on that pedal. See if anything goes for Bluey. Get this cap back on. Here we go. Pedal's firm. Yeah, she's holding. Yeah. I think they're good. I'm kind of concerned about the rubber lines. They look kind of shitty. If this were a truck with an automatic, I'd replace them, but at least with a manual transmission, you do have some options to help get you slowed down if you lose your brakes, which hopefully that won't happen, but Yeah, they feel good. Well, folks, I think I'm going to call it a night, or a morning for me, or something. It's like probably 4 o'clock in the morning. I checked the fluid in the rear end. It was a little low. Wasn't bad looking. It is a 350 geared rear end, so that's good. I don't have to worry about changing it. I was going to drain the transmission fluid and put fresh in it. When I pulled the plug to drain it, what was in there looked great, so I stuck the plug back in real quick, topping it back off. Got it all cleaned off. Hopefully get to go for a good test drive tomorrow or later today when I get up this afternoon. Okay, folks, it's Monday afternoon. I've had a few hours of sleep. I'm going to take this thing for a test drive. See how well she starts up from a cold start. Shop, it's about high 30s today, so the shop hasn't been heated. I just opened up the doors. That's amazing. A couple pumps, fired right off, dropped right into a nice idle. I do need to check the battery. Well, not the battery, the charging system. I'm just going to pull the hot post off the battery and see if it keeps running. I should know if the alternator's working or not. That seems pretty important. Uh-oh, that ain't good. Yeah. Went down to the shed real quick, look, see what I had. I got 2 left. I'm pretty sure this one came off of my 69 Mustang back before I changed it over to the 5-liter Explorer front dress. And it should work, so that shouldn't take too much work putting it in there. Hopefully it'll fit underneath that header. But I'm not going to do that today. Today I want to go for a test drive, try out the brakes and everything. Need to clean all the crap off this bed first. Times I drove something with a spinner ball. I think the clutch is bad. God damn it. Are actually locking up. That's the front ones. Figured with the new brake shoes in the back, they were probably a little more effective. The front. Alright, let's see if I can get this thing home. Second gear launch. Okay folks, it's Tuesday afternoon. I got out here to get after this clutch to get it pulled and replaced. Got a few things out. The drive shaft. Went up here to unhook the clutch linkage. And boy, I wish I'd thought of this, but over the years as the cab sunk for the previous owner, he had adjusted this rod out all the way. And by me raising the cab back up, it had thrown the clutch rod completely out of adjustment. And what was happening was that the clutch rod was way too long and it was not letting the clutch fully engage. I got it backed off like, yeah, it was like full, what, 5/8 of an inch there. Because he had that thing topped way out. So I'm putting it back together, see if she's going to work now. She's got a little bit of play in it, so it should totally engage now, if it's any good. All right, day 2. I've adjusted the clutch. Let's see what happens. Might have adjusted it out a little bit too much. Seems like she starts moving just as soon as that pedal starts coming up. Seems a lot better, but I haven't really pulled the hill yet. So now I just found this problem too. I think once it cools off, I'm just going to try smearing some JB Weld over it. Although if it's that thin on the tank, it's probably thin somewhere else. So now that the clutch disaster has been averted, let's look into this 3G conversion. It's the 3G on the right. Obviously it's a little bit bigger case, but you can see the mounting tabs are in the right place. The width of the pivot bracket is right. I've actually sourced these from Taurus's at the junkyard. From what I've read, like mid-90s V6 Mustangs are also a good one. I couldn't tell you what your Tauruses I use because I just kind of know them by looks. It seems like every conversion I've ever done for a 3G, things are a little bit different. Sometimes they bolt right in. Other times I've had to clearance the adjustment arm. It goes in here. Every time I've had to do it, if I change over to a V-belt setup, I'll show you here in a little bit, when I put the V-belt pulley on, it actually hits the housing right in here. Just a little tiny bit. I usually take a file or a grinder with a flap wheel and just clearance these ribs. Just, like I said, just tiny little bit, a 1/16 of an inch even. See, it just rubs the housing there. Okay, on this particular one, I've never done a double sheave pulley before on one of these. This whole side back here is flat instead of concave, so it's hitting this whole ridge around here. Not a problem. Spins nice and free. All right, let's see what we're going to have to do now to make it fit in the mounts. Okay, I have run into a problem here. Here's my mounting bracket. It goes on there like so. As you can see back here in this corner, the bracket gets in the way of that shape of the alternator. I've read that you can undo these bolts and clock the body of the alternator, but that won't help me at all because it just will put another one of those lumps there. I should be able to clearance that right in that area with a grinder, I believe. I'm going to try it and see. I don't think I'm really going to lose that much in strength. There'll still be plenty of meat right right in here on the back side. And plus you've got the the whole front here is going to be holding it on too. Here's the finished result. Let's take a look at the back side. Right there you can see where I took the big notch out of it. I did actually clearance it a little bit in here. And right in here. I've had to do that before. I don't know that this one would have needed it, but it does allow me to get the alternator tucked in tighter to the engine to help get the belt on. So, and I'd just soon do it now while I already had the bracket off instead of pulling it on and off 3 or 4 times. Okay, so I ran into a big problem doing this. The way the wiring was oriented on this, it was, I've already changed it, but it was coming right out here. And with the alternator installed, the wiring from the voltage regulator was pointing out right like that. It wasn't just close to the header, it was actually touching it. So this is the first time I've ever had to do this. I took the 3 bolts out, I rotated the housing. Okay, first off, you take your voltage regulator out. Now there's brushes in there that'll pop out, and as you can see, I've got a piece of welding wire in there. All you do is you push the brushes back in there far enough, and there's a little hole in them, and you put that little piece of wire in there, and that holds the brushes in. But anyway, you take the voltage regulator off, take these 3 bolts off, lift the back housing off, and then you lift this middle section out. You might have to wiggle it a little bit, I did. Lift it off, clock it to the next set of bolt holes, push it back in, put the back cover on, and put your voltage regulator back on. That's pretty much the only position I can run it. It'll be pointed kind of straight down. I couldn't put it over here because it'll be up against the block, and over here would be up against the header. Now then, as for your wiring, you've got your post here. I'm not going to tell you what size, but you run a nice big fat cable to your positive side of your battery, positive side of your solenoid, just wherever. This charges your battery. Now, you've got 3 wires here. Obviously, this one's taken care of because it feeds right back into the alternator. I just got some silicone on that because the tab's broken in there, and when that dries, it'll hopefully hold in there. Here's the key to remembering what to do with the other 2 wires. This wire here is green with a red tracer. That is the wire that energizes the fields in the alternator. And it has always been green with a red wire on Ford since the beginning of time. So remember that. And yeah, the one left over, the orange one, put a terminal on it and feed it back over to the charging terminal. And then when you put the alternator in there, like I said, if you're putting this in a Ford, every Ford I've ever worked on, you know, the green with the red tracer, that always is what excites the, that comes from the ignition switch. Key on, that wire should be hot. And which should, I will pull it out of the plug here that went to the voltage regulator. It's kind of hard to see, but this one at one time used to be green with a red tracer. I did check it. It is hot with the key on, so yeah, I'll be cutting that off and splicing that into the alternator wire. Alright, it's all in there. I had to add a little bit to my Energizer wire to get it to reach. Yeah, I just twisted it and wrapped it with tape. And normally if you're running one of these, you're normally, needing the amperage. This is way overkill for this truck. You would probably run, I'm not a wiring guy. I don't know what size wire this is. This is what came off of the 3G. I was able to salvage the original power wire that came off of the old alternator. It runs up here and splits. One half of it I've got running right up here to the hot side of the solenoid, and the other half runs into this right here, which I'm assuming feeds, yes, into the cab. And yeah, normally for this truck it'll be fine. It doesn't have that much electrical draw. It's not running fuel injection, electric fans, a stereo, and all that other crap. It's pretty minimal, so I think it'll be okay. Well, as you can see, you got the 1 V-belt and it's not squalling. When I first started it up, that's usually when they squall, because it's trying to put the charge right back in the battery. Let's pull the cable and see what happens. Yay, it's working! Alright, I can move on to something else now. Well, it's now Wednesday afternoon. Mechanically, I think it's pretty well ready to go. I still have lots of lighting issues to figure out. I messed with it a little bit yesterday with no luck. Gonna go see if I can round up some fuses. I did spend a little time yesterday afternoon getting the trailer prepped, so I got that out of the way. But I'm gonna get after this wiring again. I was all out of glass fuses. The only thing I had left was little tiny 1 amp and 2 amp stuff. I had to go up and scrounge some out of some junk vehicles up in the field. Finally starting to get some results here. Turns out it was just a couple of bad fuses so far. That passenger side tail light, I'm getting nothing. No running lights or turn signals out of it. I am getting, even though there's no, the turn signals have been cut out up here, I am getting signals for running light and turn signals, at least on the passenger side. I'll go down in the shed, see if I can't find something to use there, and then I'll start diagnosing what's going on in the rear as far as no tail lights or a turn signal on the passenger side. Look at that, Not Steve brought me another mouse. Let's see what you got here. I can snatch it from you. I got your mouse. There you go. I don't think you care about it. You just wanted to show it off. He brought me one yesterday too, but I think he squirreled it away in the shop somewhere. I saw him carry it in. Never did see him eat it. Good job, buddy. All right, found this homemade bumper that was on the front of this Bronco too when I got it. It's got a double filament bulb in there. The lenses and everything are in good shape. Yeah, the rust on those threads, that's going to be asking a lot to get them off of there, but maybe it's worth a shot. So this is why when you first start up a waste oil burner like this, you do not leave the shop for a while until it gets settled in. It overflowed just a tiny little bit. That's why I have that pan underneath it. It's happened before. Luckily I got here just in time before it, what was overflowing caught on fire. It makes a hell of a mess in here with the smoke. Anyway, let's take a look at these lights. Snazzy, huh? I don't know, there's some weird stuff going on. I can't even explain. Sometimes I get turn signals on the passenger side, other times not. Sometimes both lights go out when I'm trying to get turn signals. One of my cab lights will faintly blink when I have turn signals, which tells me I have ground issues, when that's not surprising as rusty as this truck is. I'm just going to get to work here on the rear. So far I have running lights back here on this rack, and brake lights and turn signals. And I have a brake light and turn signal on this side. If I can get a brake light, turn signal on this side, and both of these bottom lights to have tail lights, I will be happy with that. And then I need to test for trailer lights too. So I am getting a brake light and turn signal juice back here to both of these. This one here, the problem was this strip here that the bulb would contact had corroded away from the rivet. So instead of mounting a new light, I thought, well, I think I've got a pigtail over here on the bench, and I did. So I'm just going to zip tie it in place. And now I need to figure out, I'm not getting tail light signals back here to either one. I noticed when I was underneath the truck running brake line, and I think I showed you, maybe I didn't, but both of the shock mounts were rusted away from the frame. And you can see where that shock is, before the truck got parked, had been bouncing around and banging around the wiring pretty good. So I'm hoping it's just a damaged wire there, not letting the tail light signal back through. I'll find out here in a little bit. So while underneath probing around that wire trying to find if it had juice or not, I couldn't get any juice. And I came up here and all the tail lights and marker lights up here were out. And I got to mess around with the headlight switch, and I think that's a big part of my problem. Let's see here, because I can even turn the headlights on, they'll stay on for a little bit then go off. If I'm not mistaken, there's some sort of a relay built into these headlight switches, and they'll go out after a little bit. Yeah, it's not going to do it now, huh? Yep, there it went. Alright, had reinforcements come over tonight. Aaron's here. He's making a plywood floor for the cab here. I thought this was the worst of it, and it is, but it definitely needs it. He's cutting out a piece of plywood to lay over this entire stretch. I'm still fighting with tail lights at this point, but I think I got it nailed down, and plus I found out it does need a headlight switch too. Got that on order for tomorrow. Alright folks, finally got lights. The brake lights and turn signals are working too. Something acts wonky once in a while, so I am going to put a headlight switch in it tomorrow when it comes in. Hey, Aaron's quite the carpenter. Look at that. Got a nice wooden floor back here. He did the whole length of it. Or, sorry, the whole width of it. He was dealing with the heater too. Instead of pulling the heater box out, he decided to get in there with an air nozzle and try to, blow out what he could. At one point he said there's this hole right there he uncovered. And he was looking in there, he said he could swear he saw some little gray fur. And he told me where to look, and I didn't see it. And then he looked back in there and said it was gone. So we might have a little critter in there making the trip with us. What I'm doing now, we got busy and got doing work, so I didn't really film anything. Spent a lot of time working on those lights. Both of the rear shock mounts at the frame were rusted away, and we decided it'd probably be a good idea to have some shocks back here. Be bouncing around and cause problems for handling, especially with the trailer on. He's left for the night, and I'm going to continue working, and I'm going to run the shocks up here to this cross member on the flatbed. I've got a longer set of aftermarket shocks I went out to my part shed and found. Should be a pretty easy fix, and should be well worth the effort. Good as new, or better than it was? I'll let you decide. What? What? Meow. 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 So it's Thursday afternoon now. It's getting to be crunch time. I just backed the truck up to the trailer a little bit ago, tested out the trailer lights, everything worked there, and then I took it for a little test spin with an empty trailer. Yeah, it was definitely a little less than impressive. I can't imagine how bad it's going to be when we get a car on it. And granted, the car's going to be light and there's no engine or transmission in it. But these 306s, they might run forever, but that doesn't mean they don't get tired. This thing runs pretty good, but yeah, I'm betting it's probably pretty low on compression, but the die is cast at this point. We're going to make the trip with the truck and see what happens. Getting my shop heater going here. Going to start loading stuff up on the flatbed. I'm going to look into getting that heater working a little bit better, because it's going to be like in the teens Saturday morning when we leave. It'd sure be nice to have a little bit of heat in there, even though I don't, as drafty as this cab's going to be, anything we can get will help. Secure it out of the way. Alright, my progress on the heater so far. I decided to bypass the resistor and I ran a jumper wire. Well, it's gone now. I did run a jumper wire from the heater motor right to the battery post, and it did seem to increase. You could hear the blower motor running faster, and I let it run for, I don't know, 10 minutes, and the wires didn't get hot or anything. But even though you could hear the blower motor running pretty good, with it on hot, you were just barely getting anything out of the defrost and nothing out of the floor. I messed with the warm and cold flow, and when you tried to turn it to cold, you'd actually start getting some flow, and it'd start blowing mouse nest out. And I don't know what the hell that was. It actually started blowing mouse nest out, but it felt like the door wasn't even opening all the way. So even though I don't want it to run on the cold side, it tells me something's blocking up the hot side of the passage. So I'm pulling the whole heater housing out. On these non-AC models, it's been a long time since I've done one of these. There's a bolt right back there. and 2 bolts on each side of the blower motor. Obviously you got to unhook your heater hoses and your wiring. So I've got everything unhooked. I'm ready to pull it out, see if it'll clear the dash. And I also got the vent cover up there off. So it's supposed to come out pretty easy, but we'll see. So this little control cable here would not clear the dash. I could not get it jimmied out of there. Maybe there's a way, but I couldn't do it. I did find that right in here on this side of the dash, there's a bolt. Oh, let's see. I don't know. It's down in here somewhere. You can access it because you have to take the glove box out anyway. You can access it with a 1/2-inch socket, an extension, and a ratchet. Feels like there's another bolt up in here, but I can't feel it. But anyway, getting this bottom bolt out was enough. It's not showing, but it allowed me to pull the dash out enough to get that bracket to clear. Let's see if I can get it. So maybe I can get her weaseled out of there now that the control cable bracket's unhooked. Alright, it's out. That actually wasn't too bad at all. I'm going to turn into it and see how much mouse nest I can dig out of it. Alright, let's take a look. Packed full of mouse nest there. See a little bit right in there too on the blend door, I suppose you'd call it. Got Kitty waiting here. Maybe a mouse will spring out she can catch. That was a lot of mouse nest. Pretty well cleared up now. I'm going to take this out and blow it out with compressed air and put it all back together. Should have some heat then. Whether the heat will stay in the truck, as drafty as it is another matter, but at least we got a fighting chance now. The duct for the fresh air, right there, that feeds into the fan, comes from the cowl. Yeah, I'm not putting that back in. I'm just going to stuff an old t-shirt in there because I don't think fresh air is really going to be a problem in this truck. So I'd like to keep as much cold air out as possible. We're going to have a hard enough time as it is without pulling cold air in from the cowl. Look at all the goddamn noise in here.
It's called fabricating in a shitty way.
Never heard of it.
So,
looks like hackericating.
it is hackericating at its finest.
Looks like you need to do a little trimming.
Yeah.
Why are you panting?
Because I'm
Are you excited?
Because I'm so excited. Yeah, this is going up, or this is going up. Either way, one side or the other is going to come up.
I don't know what. This is how they make airplanes, isn't it?
That's exactly how they do it. All the assurance.
Precision. All right, it's 11:15 on a Thursday night. We think we finally got this thing ready to go. I got the headlight switch in. Aaron worked on the floor in the rear cab. Got that reasonably good. Well, way better than it was before. Had a hell of a time getting some dash lights. I really wanted to have enough lights to see the gauges and the speedometer more than anything. And something was shorting out in there. I finally just made a jumper wire right from the headlight switch to the gauge cluster, and just didn't need any of the other dash lights or interior lights. Just I wanted to see the gauge cluster, and that was it. So finally got that done. Yeah, all that's left now tomorrow is to load up all the necessities for the trip, and that'll make for another video, hopefully. Well, folks, I don't know if you can hear me. It is a little noisy in here with some drafts. It's Friday, probably about 1 o'clock. I'm driving this turd into town. Gonna get some fuel in it. One last test ride. Hard to tell how it dries because it's so windy today. The heat works, although it smells like mouse piss in here now. Apologies for not showing you much over the last 2 nights worth of work, but you really didn't miss much. It was just a lot of chasing wiring issues and patching the hole in the back of the cab, which I'm not sure I'd call it a patch so much as just blocking it off so things didn't fall out, minimize the draft. Speaking of draft, I'm feeling a pretty nasty cold draft coming through the speaker opening in the door panel. I'll have to throw some tape over that. So another little update on the way home from town. Started smelling, I don't know what it was, clutch or brake lining, real bad. So I'd made a little detour and pulled a steep hill. I pulled the hill just fine, the clutch held. And then when I pulled into a driveway to back up and come home, the driveway was a slight incline and the truck rolled just fine on its own. And got home, went and checked everything over, and this front hub up here was pretty hot, like it was the culprit that was dragging, but it's nice and free now, so I guess just something to keep an eye on during the trip.